All right, dudes, before we do our guided practice, I actually have some announcements. Some announcements. Okay, first announcement is we're still doing virtual Vista points. So here's just a list of all of the things that you can still earn points for. For all of your core values, you can earn 2 points. For each office hours or even reteach hours that you attend, that is 3 points. So if you come to your office hours all week, you can earn 15 points. That's incredible. And then when we have some school spirit happening again, you will also earn 1 point for each of those different things, which includes like community meetings with Miss Ray for Mr. Augusta, going to any of the social lunches, and even attending the circles on Fridays. Moving on over to your academic points. So every assignment that you do is 1 point, and the better you do on it, the more points you get. So for scholars who have been rushing through their work and just guessing, and believe me, I know there are many of you out there, I can tell who is doing the work and who isn't. And so for those of you that are also doing a great job of making sure that all of your answers are correct, you've been earning an additional 2 points because your assignment is 80% or higher. And then also, if you've been doing all of your Lexia every single day and every week, you will also earn 2 points for that. And then you earn 3 points if you do all of your Lexia minutes throughout the week. So scholars, the first thing I want you guys to think about is that all the work that we are asking you to do is really not a lot. We usually spend 8 hours a day at school, and we're really just asking everybody to work 2 hours a day. Very reasonable, and you can earn all of these amazing prizes. In addition to that, at the end of the week, for whoever becomes a potential winner for any of the raffles, you have to be at the social check-in on Monday. So if you don't go to the social check-in on Monday to see who is the winner and your name is called, unfortunately, you don't get to claim your prize. So you have to be participating 2 hours every day. Very reasonable. That's like watching one movie. You got this. Okay, now moving on to some data from last week, and more specifically about our assignments. Okay, let me move my head right here. Okay, this is all of the work that we did last week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So all of the blue bars are the number of students that we have completing work every single week. So there are 73 of you. And here's something that I noticed. Monday and Tuesday, we weren't off to the best start. There was only 57 scholars who completed their guided practice and independent practices on that day. But in addition to that, if you look at the graph that shows tenths and hundredths on Splash Learn, not even half of you, well, a little bit more than half of you did the actual independent practice assignment. The directions were very clear, so if anybody was confused, you had to visit office hours in order to get any clarification on that. But unfortunately, if you did your guided practice on Tuesday, and then you just didn't do your independent practice on Splash Learn, you scored a 0. I'm sorry, guys. Have to make sure that you're following all those directions. We're always here to provide you with support. So if you watched the videos and did the guided practice, but then didn't go to Splash Learn to complete it, all of the work that you did unfortunately scored a 0. I know that there are scholars who can do a much better job of reading and following directions. However, on Wednesday, we had our best day ever for pretty much the entire month we've been online. 65 scholars out of 73 completed all of their guided and independent practice work. That's almost all of you. There were only 8 scholars that day who did not do the work. That's amazing. But just like our goal from a couple weeks ago, every scholar should be completing their work. So our goal is still to make sure everybody does their work. Then on Thursday, we dropped down a little bit, and that was quiz day. And then on Friday, we continue to drop down. So I can see here that we have this like roller coaster pattern, but really scholars, we should see whoop, A nice straight line between all of that. We're here to help. We're here to support you. We want to make sure that you are all prepared for fifth grade next year. And I can tell you, fifth grade is pretty tough. It's your last year before middle school. So 2 hours a day out of those 8 hours, you guys can crush this and you'll be at a much, much, much better start next year for fifth grade and you'll be totally ready. Anytime you have questions, go to office hours with Miss Hernandez or Miss Rowe. Ask all of the questions about your work. All right, have your scrap piece of paper, pen, pencil, whatever, crayon, marker. As always, a cute cat. She's laying down over here. Let's get started on fractions this week, guys. Before we get started on our guided practice questions today, we're going to do a quick review on fractions. Our friends Tim and Moby at BrainPop are going to pay us a visit to give us a quick review. You're actually going to watch 2 videos back to back. Both of the videos are going to discuss fractions that are less than 1 whole and fractions that are greater than 1 whole. Those fractions are called mixed numbers. Even though it is review, please watch the entire video. We're going to use a lot of the information to help us answer the questions for guided practice today. Hope you enjoyed the video with Tim and Moby at BrainPop.
Cheer up, Moby. It's still early. Plus, it means more for us. Dear Tim and Moby, what is a fraction? From Blake. I can show you, Blake, using these tasty props. Cake and cookies. Sorry. Anyway, think of a fraction as part of a whole, or a set. Here, we've got 1 whole birthday cake, which I'm going to cut up into smaller pieces. Because it's nice to share, that's why. Now, if I cut the cake right down the middle, I get 2 equal-sized pieces. Each piece is 1 whole cake divided in 2, or 1/2 of the whole. We can write that as a fraction. This number, the denominator, tells us how many pieces make up 1 whole. The numerator tells us the number of pieces we're dealing with. So this is 1/2 of the cake, and these are 2 halves. 2 divided by 2 is 1 whole cake. Alright, now it's a party. To make sure everyone gets a piece, I'll cut the cake into 4 pieces. Each piece represents 1 of those 4 pieces, or 1/4 of the whole, so the fraction is 1/4. It's also called a quarter. Right, just like the coin, which makes sense because 25 cents is 1/4 of a dollar. Basketball games are divided into 4 quarters. Quarter past means 15 minutes after the hour, and 4 quarts make a gallon. This is 1/4 of the cake. This is 2 quarters, 3 quarters, and 4 quarters. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so 4 quarters is 1 whole cake. Y'all. Phew, good thing I've got some other handy fractions to fall back on. Let's see, I can split this cake into 1/8 and even 1/16. Say, that reminds me. The inches on a ruler are broken up into fractions too. Different rulers may show 1/2 inches, quarter inches, eighth inches, and so on. 1, 2, 3. Each piece is 1 3/4 inches long. Y'all. Too small, huh? Okay, how about some cookies? Remember, we can also use fractions to talk about items in a group. Let's see, there are 15 cookies in the set, so that's our denominator. The cookies aren't all the same type. 7 are chocolate chip, and 8 are oatmeal raisin. Those are our numerators. So, 7/15 of the cookies are chocolate chip, and 8/15 are oatmeal raisin. Hey, if you pay attention, you'll start seeing fractions all around you. That's right, little Jimmy. Since you pitched 5 innings today, you pitched 5/9 of the baseball game. You got the idea, Hillbot. In music, half notes last 1/2 as long as whole notes. And quarter notes last 1/4 as long. Yep, when you baked this cake, you used fractions to measure out the ingredients, like, say, half a cup of butter. 3/4 of a cup of motor oil? I have to go to the bathroom.
What are mixed numbers? A mixed number is a number that shows both wholes and parts of a whole. You have only one whole apple, but you also have half an apple. Right, you have 1½ apples. To write a mixed number, you write the whole number first. Then you write the fraction right next to it. How many glasses of milk do you have? Let's see, you have 1, 2, 3 full glasses. You also have a half a glass. So you have 3½ glasses of milk. You can write this as a mixed number. Let's see, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 sandwiches, and you also have about 3/4 of a sandwich. So you have 4 3/4 sandwiches. You can also write this with words. 4 3/4 is the same as 4 3/4. Wait a minute, is that a hammer and newspaper sandwich? How many pies do you have? There are 6 whole pies. The last pie has 1 out of the 5 slices left, or 1/5 left. So you have 6 1/5 pies. Moby, did you just eat a sock pie? Was the sock clean? How many cartons of eggs do you have? There are 5 full cartons. The last carton has 1 out of 6 eggs, or 1/6. So you have 5 1/6 cartons of eggs. What fraction of these rectangles is green? There are 7 rectangles that are all green. The last rectangle is 2/3 green. So 7 2/3 of the rectangles are green. Moby, what else are you going to eat? Stomach medicine?
Now that we've reviewed fractions with Tim and Moby from BrainPop, let's go ahead and use all of that information to help us with our guided practice questions today. One of the first things that I want to review together is numerator, and denominator. Go ahead and say each of those words to yourself 2 times. How many times? That's right, 2 times. Numerator, denominator. The numerator is the top number in a fraction that tells us how many parts or pieces we have out of one whole. The denominator tells us how many equal-sized pieces there are all together in that one whole. And one thing I really love about the video with Tim and Moby is that they not only talked about fractions of one single item, they also talked about fractions of a set, that's right, a set. A set is a group of things. For example, if you were back in your classroom right now, could you imagine what half of your classroom would look like? Or could you think of how many students would be half of your class? All of the students together would be one whole set or a group. And then you would divide that group into 2 equal pieces. Would we divide each person into 2 pieces? No, that's really strange for that question. So keep in mind that fractions represent parts of one whole object or one whole set. We're going to continue to use that information with our guided practice questions. Read question number 1 to yourself. Then I will go ahead and read it aloud. Question number 1 says, which statement is true? Since it's a multiple choice question, we're only looking for one answer. How many answers? That's right, only one answer. This is going to be a question where we're going to have to evaluate each choice. When we evaluate each choice, we should read them slowly and carefully, and sometimes more than once. Go ahead and read letter A to yourself. A says, the numerator on top of a fraction shows the total number of parts. Take about 5 to 10 seconds to think about that. Do you think the numerator shows the total number of parts? No. Remember, the numerator tells us how many pieces we have of those equal parts. So letter A would be not true. Go ahead and read letter B to yourself. Letter B says, the smaller number always goes on the bottom of a fraction. What do you think about that? Does it matter if it's a smaller number? No. Smaller numbers being on the bottom for the denominator is not relevant to whether or not it is the denominator. So we're going to use that exact code, which is, it is not relevant if the number is odd or even. Go ahead and read letter C to yourself as well. Letter C says, a fraction is an even number. What do you think about that? Thinking about letter B, doesn't matter if a fraction is even. Is it always even? Now, one example I can think of is thirds. If we were to split something into 3 equal pieces, well, we already know that 3 is not an even number. So a fraction doesn't have to be an even number. So for that one, that would also be not true. Go ahead and read letter D to yourself as well. Letter D says, a fraction shows the number of parts of a whole. What do you think about that one? Do you think a fraction shows the number of parts of a whole? You're right. That's exactly what a fraction is. A fraction is equal parts of one whole. So letter D is true. Go ahead and click letter D for your answer. Now go ahead and take the time to read question number 2 to yourself and also see those drop-down options for what you're going to fill into the blank. Okay, question number 2 says, mixed numbers are fractions that are blank to one whole. I'm going to annotate the phrase mixed fractions. And mixed fractions, or actually, I'm not going to annotate mixed fractions. I'm going to annotate exactly what it says, which is mixed numbers. Well, in the video with Tim and Moby, they reminded us what a mixed number is. What is a mixed number? A mixed number is when you show a fraction that has wholes and parts. What's an example of a mixed number? One example I can think of is 1 and 1/2. 1 and 1/2 would be greater than 1 whole. Another mixed number could be 3 and 3/4. Well, 3 and 3/4 is also greater than 1 whole. So when we go back and we read question number 2, question number 2 again says mixed numbers are greater than, less than, or equal to 1 whole. Well, all the examples that we saw in the video and all of the examples that we thought of, they were greater than 1 whole. Make sure you have that selected for question number 2, and also make sure you have that written on your paper so you remember the answer for number 2. Okay, question number 3 says, there are 3 pies on the table. Moby took 1 pie. Which fraction shows what Moby took? Like most story problems, we should always consider drawing a picture or a model to represent what's happening. The first part says there are 3 pies on the table. Let's go ahead and just draw a quick picture of 3 pies. Then it says Moby took 1 pie. To represent what Moby took, I'm simply just going to write an M in the circle that represents the pie, and the M will represent Moby. Which fraction shows what Moby took? Well, if there are 3 pies on the table, and Moby took a whole pie, the whole represents all 3 pies all together. And the reason for that is because we are not splitting up each individual pie. We're splitting up the groups of pies together. And if Moby took one of the pies, we know that there are 3 pies all together. And if he takes 1 pie, he is going to take 1/3 of the entire pie. We can double check by making sure that when we count each pie by 1/3, we should have 3/3 all together. Why should we have 3/3 altogether? We should have 3/3 altogether because 3/3 represents one whole. And all of the pies together represent one whole group of pies. 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. The fraction of the pie that Moby took is 1/3. Let's find our answer choice that represents 1/3. Is it letter A? No, that represents 3 wholes. It's 3 wholes because the denominator is 1. Well, if you had something that was just one piece, that one piece is a whole. Letter B shows 1/3. Go ahead and select letter B.
Go ahead and read question number 4 to yourself, and then I'm going to go ahead and read it aloud. The question says, if a boy has 2 brothers and 3 sisters, and everyone gets 2 slices of a birthday cake, the cake should be cut into thirds, sixths, eighths, twelfths. I actually want you to take 3 minutes to solve the story problem on your own. Just like questions 1 through 3, take the time to annotate important details on your scrap piece of paper and draw a picture to help you understand what the story is talking about. I'll give you 2 hints. The first hint is the boy is included with the brothers and sisters to get those 2 slices of birthday cake. And the second hint is consider drawing a picture other than a circle to help you represent the slices of birthday cake. Circles can be a little bit tricky to cut into equal sized pieces. Again, 3 minutes to solve the story problem on your own. Go ahead and go to work. Okay, now that you've had some time to solve the story problem on your own, let's go ahead and compare our strategies by thinking about what's the same and what's different and seeing if you have the correct answer. Go ahead and make edits along the way. So the annotation that I made that was really important is that there are 6 brothers and sisters. While the story problem did say that there are 2 brothers and 3 sisters, the boy was included in all the slices of birthday cake, which makes 6 brothers and sisters in all. The story then also said each person gets 2 slices of birthday cake. Okay, then as I mentioned, it would be a little bit tricky for me to draw a circle and think about cutting that into equal size pieces. Here's why. Most of the time, we try to cut into half first because we know that half is an easy fraction to divide when we are sharing equal size pieces. But then if I cut half into half again, we were going to get fourths. And if I try to cut that in half again, that was going to make eighths. And that is simply too many pieces if each brother and sister were to just get one piece. So that's how I was thinking about it. I was thinking, how can I give them each one piece of the birthday cake? Well, if they each got one piece, that would be 6, because that would be 6 equal size pieces. Well, then if each person got 2 pieces, well, then that would be 12 pieces altogether. So when I drew my birthday cake, I drew it into a rectangle. Again, I knew that circles were going to be a little tricky for me to cut. When I cut the birthday cake, I first cut it in half in one direction. Then I cut it into thirds in the other direction. That gave me 6. I could then cut my 6 into 2 more pieces. So then that way, each person was getting 1, 2 slices of the birthday cake. When I counted all the pieces all together, that was 12. Another way that you can imagine how many pieces the birthday cake was going to be is I could actually count them by 2s. 2 for the first sibling, 2 more for the second sibling, 2 more for the third, 2 more for the fourth, 2 more slices for the fifth sibling, and then 2 more slices for the sixth sibling. So again, I'm going to have to divide that birthday cake into 12 equal size pieces. So the correct answer for number 4 is 12ths. Looks like 12ths is choice D. Sweet job, dudes. Go ahead and continue on to your independent practice for today. Read each of those questions very carefully. It should take you about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. Use your scratch piece of paper to help you. And if any scholars need additional help again this week, you'll be asked to visit reteach hours. Remember, if you don't visit reteach hours for your assignment, you will not score any points for that assignment. Have a great Monday, scholars. See you tomorrow.